words of Lord Byron permeate through Koudelka, the dream project of Mana series composer Hiroki Kikuta. Released for the Sony PlayStation in 1999, Koudelka presents its literary knowledge and influences by scattering poetry references throughout the game, showcasing its thematic maturity through its commentary on love, society, religion, and existentialism. Lord Byron is one of many poets referenced in the game, alongside Alexander Pope and George Herbert. James O'Flaherty, the tritagonist of the game, states, "Poetry should delve into the depths of the souls of the faithful. It should inspire the soul." The scripted dialogue of Koudelka is an exceptional piece of writing for the PlayStation 1, with all cutscenes playing out like a traditional piece of theatre. All lines of dialogue flow from one another, with characters cutting each other off instantly, rather than the separated and staggered recording found in most video game dialogue even today.
We have come from the guidance of God. God sees all, He knows all. Got it?
Preach to the converted.
What about you, Edward? You seem a little more educated than she.
I don't really care. Talk to me about monetary value. Save the holy crap.
It seems I'm disappointed once again.
It is akin to a modern Naughty Dog production, where each scene is played out as one cohesive piece of acting. While this coherent approach to dialogue recording does well to add a sense of realism to the production, it also mirrors a stage production. Having a small cast of characters also helps in conveying a theatrical approach, with most cutscenes playing out in small rooms and confined spaces. To enhance this, Kikuta used state-of-the-art motion capture technology in order to capture up to 4 actors in a single scene, technology that was not available in Japan at the time. Using an external special effects company called Futurelight, all scenes were recorded in Santa Monica, recorded in English and dubbed in Japanese. This was an uncommon approach to video game development not only at the time, but also today. In modern game development, most lines of dialogue are captured in separate audio booths around the world and pasted together further into production. This is why most video game voice acting can feel detached, emotionless, and void of an artistic sensibility. It is reported that equipment surrounding the soundstage during recordings of Koudelka's cutscenes were used as props for the actors in order to uphold a certain immersion while recording. Literary influences are used in Koudelka to support the game's comments on religion and society of the time. While Edward Plunkett, another protagonist of Koudelka, uses the romanticism of Lord Byron throughout the game to convey his emotions towards other characters, and his feeling towards the Gothic and sinister setting he finds himself in.
I can't believe I've stepped foot in this place.
Where all have gone, and all must go, to be the nothing that I was. I have born to life and living woe.
Lord Byron, no?
Byron's poetry is bashed by James, a Catholic bishop and fundamentalist whose worldview is skewed by the poverty and political upheaval he finds himself in, as he grew up in Ireland during the Great Famine of the 1840s, and instead admires the words of Alexander Pope, a satirist of the Age of Enlightenment and a key figure in Augustan literature, where drama morphed away from political satire into melodrama, and where poetry instead became a space for personal exploration.
It should inspire the soul as to Alexander Pope or George Herbert.
The clash of literary styles of Byron and Pope is used to thematically showcase the conflict of worldviews between Edward and James, and also their place in society, with Edward being born into the upper echelons and James into extreme poverty. This divergence in philosophy is further solidified by the differences between Augustan and Romantic literature, with the former representing an older worldview, which fits with James's Catholic religion and bigoted attitude toward the poor.
Seek help from someone you've never met before is ridiculous, especially when people are dying from hunger every single day in London.
They're all filthy and immoral little beggars that deserve to die.
References to Alexander Pope may also further showcase the significance of literature found throughout Koudelka, as Pope himself was well known for his translation of Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey, suggesting that the preservation of written works is of the utmost importance. This brings us to the Emigre manuscript, a fictional tome locked away in the Vatican that supposedly holds the power to alter and warp the very fabric of existence itself. The central plot revolves around finding this lost text in order to prevent a catastrophic world event, but could also be seen as an allegory for literature itself. James states that poetry should inspire the soul, and works of literature do have the power to change one's attitude toward the world itself. Pope's use of satire confirms this, as his work criticised philosophies of the time, and could have played a part in people's opinions toward courtly concerns or the monarchy in general. Having such a powerful tome as the Emigre manuscript in the wrong hands could influence the world, and the fact that it is guarded by the most powerful religion of the time suggests the power that literature can have over the masses, with the Emigre manuscript perhaps being a metaphor for the Bible itself, and the dangerous connotations that come with it. In one scene where the party discovers a room of bodies, James states that they are all liars and thieves anyway. This is still a monastery. This is still God's house, prison or no. Why all those liars and heathen are killed and none of my concern. Having complete contempt for sinners exacerbates James's fundamentalism, further showcasing the dangers of literal interpretation of religious texts and literature. In one other scene, James is found frantically searching through a library of ancient books on mysticism and alchemy, disregarding those on Hermetism and Kabbalah, so that he can find, amongst the trash, valuable works illustrating basic useful experiments for predicting the laws of nature, predicting a time when all men will be treated equally, God's will. When James refuses to confess what exactly he is searching for, Edward begins quoting Shakespeare.
I am not bound to please thee with my answers.
Do all men kill the things they do not love?
Hate any man the thing he would not kill?
And I thought all outlaws read just simple, stupid poets. You read Shakespeare. You're smarter than you look.
That makes two of us.
Putting their philosophical differences aside, the two have a rare moment of respect for one another through the mutual respect of one of literature's most revered writers, shattering the bigoted discrimination James usually has for people like Edward. Koudelka's Gothic literature influences serve as the thematic backdrop to the game, with the setting of the Nemerton Monastery being based off the real-life St. David's Cathedral found in Pembrokeshire in Wales. Koudelka was not only influenced by Wales as a visual setting, but also by the folk tales that exist of the area. During the plot of the game, it is revealed that Patrick Hayworth aims to use a magical cauldron to bring his wife back from the dead. It is a reference to the second tale of the Four Branches of the Mabinogion, a piece of Welsh literature, in which a cauldron that can raise the dead is used in a war between the Welsh and Irish. Not only was Koudelka influenced by bigger names in Gothic literature, he took the time to research even niche Welsh folktales to uphold the authenticity of the game. He bought over 100 books on British history during his research, and while the studio visit to the scenic Welsh countryside inspired the Gothic elements of Koudelka, William Hope Hodgson's occult short stories and Lord Dunstan's high fantasy and horror novels would be the biggest influence over Koudelka during development. Surrounding himself by the works of these acclaimed horror writers is showcased through the game's dark undertones and twisted enemy design, and his use of blending real-life events, such as the sinking of the Princess Alice, with dark fantasy elements, was used to convey Koudelka's fascination with this point in history, as he claimed the end of the 19th century was where superstition began to dissipate from society with the advent of technology. This coincides with James and Edward's clash over modernism during their arguments in the game. RPG Gamer wrote of Koudelka that central characters argue strongly over matters of their differing moralities and philosophies. The end result is a shocking degree of realism that strongly conveys the real-world setting. The heavy use of literary references found within Koudelka perfectly achieves the blending of reality and fantasy that Koudelka wished to convey through the game. From Shakespeare to Welsh folk tales and H.P. Lovecraft-inspired enemy designs, Koudelka houses some fascinating references in order to accomplish a deep layer of authenticity that is rarely seen not only in JRPGs, but video games in general. I was captivated by this world that Koudelka created, and seeing it blossom into its spiritual sequel Shadow Hearts speaks volumes to the often overlooked groundwork set by Koudelka. By using literary references not only as a plot device, but a showcase of certain characters' philosophy, What results is a nuanced approach to character design without explicit use of backstory or exposition. Byron's romanticism is used to add a level of mysticism to Koudelka's folkloric background during a scene where Edward gazes into Koudelka's eyes. The glance from thy soul-searching eye can raise with hope, depress with fear. While Koudelka's past is already one rooted in folkloric tradition, this extra level of poetry only complements this sentiment. This learned and intellectual approach to storytelling and character design from Kikta is something to be savoured. Many modern games can feel uninspired, especially in the AAA space, and Koudelka is a shining example of how to use literature to successfully create an engaging and captivating world and atmosphere. In the words of Lord Byron, "Words are things, and a small drop of ink, falling like dew upon a thought, produces that which makes thousands, perhaps millions, think."